you very much for RCCS for remembering us and connecting us from all over South Asia. I have a fond memories of RCCS since 90s. I've been coming and going, but for some reason, I was caught up. But it's good to reconnect again, and especially to talk about, how do we see South Asia from Nepal. I think the idea today we are discussing is social inequality in post-COVID-19 situations, the possibilities, challenges, opportunities. First of all, I'm always intrigued by the idea of a post. When does it start? When does it end? And especially with the virus and the sites of eliminating virus far away, because once virus is there, it will always remain there. Like normal disease, it creates a pathology, but being a pandemic, it creates a pathology in body politics. The way we do politics. One of the most challenging aspect of the pandemic that I feel from Nepal in a very far away, it's been 160 days that I haven't stepped out of my house because we had the lockdown plus curfew, a lot of things going on. So the imagining the world staying inside home, devoid of all kinds of connection is quite difficult task. But someone who has engaged in a social movement, even in a political struggle in Nepal, I see some of the challenges. Because one of the most stark impact of COVID-19 is already on the process, the way we do politics. I don't need to remind those gathered today that politics is always territorial. Politics needs to be physical in a many way. The idea of a speech that began with the long back in Plato, Aristotle, or Chanakya for that matter, is always a important thing. You need to listen, you need to hear, you need to engage in the physical enactment of politics by visiting people, by demanding things, by talking to it. So to me, all politics is territorial and all politics is physical in that sense. However, this will be going to be big change. For example, I was watching the television, the way Americans are convening their convention. It was a very, virtual convention and things. So technology has become very important part, and those who have resources will again, like in the past, will manipulate the discursive element and intervention in the politics. So in that sense, how politics will be hold in the coming days is a very difficult task. For example, I bring my own trade union background. From trade unions movement, I learned that we close the factory only to open it. It's a relationship. Politics is also relational. And because of the pandemic, that relational is temporarily shut down. There's no collective bargain whatsoever going on in Nepal right now, and similarly in the regional level, in the global level. There's a lot of talk, a lot of conversation around the ideas, like we gather, but how it will be implemented, how it will be enacted, that has become quite challenging. So to me, how do we do politics? How do we talk about, how do we ensure rights and different instruments in the wake of possible virtual world or disconnect world? How do we connect ourselves after this, quote unquote, if and when pandemic goes away? But pandemic will leave big pathology in our body politics, the way we do politics, the way things will move on. So that's very important thing. And again, one of the major challenge for the social movements and by large democratic politics, I don't want to separate social movements and the civic society movement apart from the larger democratic movement and struggle, because it's a part of that. When we think of a democracy, we always think of a party politics, election, parliament, and other things, and generally tend to forget the material component of the larger democratic politics, which is people. People need to organize around ideas. People need to organize around their interests. and how these social interests, political interests, regional interests, and again, a very interesting time of identity interest, how does it manifest? If people are not going out, not talking to each other, finding ways to do, finding ways to articulate their demands. So if politics is about managing differences, how do we manage our differences in terms of, popular things? So that's one of the major concerns, that grappling, theoretical grappling, linkages, how do we connect? And again, in the absence of the, in the wake of the pandemic, what we have seen is that the states are becoming much more stronger. The process was already started in South Asia and the rest of the world. And what I see most dangerous from Nepal's my own experience in Nepal and whatever little I know about South Asia, the emergence of majoritarian populist politics coupled with the nationalist politics, nationalism, so-called nationalism, has produced a very fatal combinations for the popular politics and popular aspirations. People have been chased out, people have been silenced in the name of, nationalism. And to me, populism is a very dangerous way of undermining constitutional politics, where constitutional politics gives a space for everyone in terms of majority, minority, but in a majoritarian populist politics undermines that, the long-standing social and political inequalities, be it a number, be it in a voice. Minority to me is a both number and a voice. In that sense, the majoritarian politics captures the imagination of so-called majority, both in terms of voice and the number. So again, throughout the subcontinent, what I see is a majoritarian populist politics coupled with the nationalism has hijacked the whatever little space we have created so far in a dangerous situation. So every social movement, including trade unions, indigenous peoples movements, women's movement, various consumer movements, have already suffered from the top-down model of the state. Because in the pandemic, what was the rationale that as an individual, you stay at home, don't go out, because I am there to protect you. If you go out, you not only yourself will be infected, but you will be infected. You will be also infecting others. Therefore, who would protect us? So very rational of politics has been challenged in a way. And I've been reading a very interesting debate coming from Italy, the Gregory Agamben and other. It's a very difficult. So I think, yes, it is a challenge. Yes, there is a disease or a pandemic there. But what I see is it's also assume the discursive element of control, command and control from the state's perspective. In that sense, I think we live in a very difficult time. How to regenerate politics, which is based on claims and counterclaims. In order to mediate that claims and counterclaims, you need a political institution. Unfortunately, sadly, all these democratic constitutional elements that we see all over South Asia was already in a decline or decay or a kind of power grab from those things. So one of the major challenge of the social movement in order to address the social inequality is to reclaim the political space. And I think today's conversation, I would like to hear from the senior friends and colleagues from subcontinent, how do we reclaim the space that has already been lost? Thank you very much.
Thank you.